I'm scared, guys. So scared. Hey guys, MasakoX here. Now, Dragon Ball Super. What is that in a show really? Well, it's basically around to keep the old Dragon Ball fire going, as well as actually fill in a time slot for the Fuji TV's Children's Hour that Dragon Ball Kai had previously filled, and then Toriko filled, and absolutely bombed. It's there to serve a purpose, not just to entertain. Now, I'm going to say this first and foremost. It is absolutely fantastic that a show that has been around for so long still generates this much hype and buzz. However, now that we know that Super's about to be wrapping up for the time being, I'm starting to become rather concerned for something. From the way things are going, based on the current episodes, I don't think the show is going to end well. But if it turns out that it wasn't the case, and you're typing in the comments from in the future saying that it wasn't the case, then I hold my hand up and say, I'm sorry, this is all pure conjecture and worry inside my little noggin.
But Masako, you said you've loved Super for the longest time. Why are you suddenly turning your back against it?
Well, I'm not per se. I still think that Dragon Ball Super has provided much needed character development, as well as adding some fascinating lore to the entire world and franchise. However, just because I have really enjoyed its existence and the fact that it's provided so much more information to build universes and different stories and spin-offs and such, and that it keeps the series fresh, it doesn't forgive all of the discrepancies and issues that the show's had during its production, and all the little troubles I've had throughout the entire time I've covered it on this channel. There have been sorely missed opportunities that Toei, Toriyama, and even the likes of Toyotaro have just forgotten to really address, or they missed entirely, or they just went the conservative route, and that's not the way Dragon Ball's supposed to be. It's meant to subvert our expectations, not just in the little things, but in the big stuff. And yes, thankfully for Toyotaro's case, he can address some of those issues in the manga instead of the anime. And yes, I know, Hit and Monarca, that whole thing, that was pretty amusing, but we need bigger. And I'm not just going to be a Debbie Downer. There are some things I think could have been really good for Super, and I'll provide some sort of solution for them if they ever decide to do a Super Part 2, like a whole Shippuden, or just an entirely new show. I think in a way you could consider this as a little bit of what-ifery, just not in What If Week. Now first off, let's be clear. Most people might say that Dragon Ball Super was just a spontaneous thing just to capitalize on the success of the movie. Well, it wasn't all about that. Toriyama acknowledged that that 10-year time skip between Buu and the end of Z was a missed opportunity that he needed to capitalize on in some shape or form, but he didn't know quite what. And here's an excerpt from an interview that I've used quite a few times, but I feel is very important, in a conversation he had between himself and Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru, a long-term character designer for the show. The Dragon Ball Kanzenban has brought in new readers, and I think that as fans, it's only natural that they'd want to see a new Dragon Ball Z title. What would you think about making a new anime work about once a year or so? Oh, I'd like to see that. If we're going to be making stories left and right here, maybe we should rewind the time a bit and make them stories set sometime in the past. I think so too. Instead of continuing the story further and further into the future, it'd be better to do a separate episode style of story development where you go back in time and go, this sort of enemy was here, and this sort of story. Just say, it wasn't in the original work, but this sort of story happened. Maybe that would be better. Yeah, quite clearly, the likes of Toei didn't listen to that advice and instead went on to do GT, and we all know what happened from there. A lot of us, in terms of the fan base and the community, were curious to see what happened in between that 10-year span that got everything to the way it was at the end of Z. So that is what Dragon Ball Super ultimately set out to do. Answer the questions that we all had concerning the 10-year time skip, as well as providing a little bit of comedy, as well as a little bit of drama. But then again, now that I think about it, you could have just done the same thing with just a few movies. I personally thought that we were going to be getting a movie once every 2 years or 18 months or something like that. That was a trend set between Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. If that had just continued the same way, even to this day, I would have been okay with that, and I think most people would have been okay with that as well. I'd have loved the opportunity to go to a London premiere of a Dragon Ball Z movie, and show all those normies that Dragon Ball Z can pull in the punters as well. But no, we got a series, and is that technically automatically better? Well, kinda. You see, with a movie, it's pretty much cut and dry. It's all packaged within one product, and then you can just move on from there. With a series though, it's a little bit different. You need to have a game plan about where it's gonna go over the space of 5, 10, 15, 50, 100 episodes, it doesn't matter. Even if you don't write detailed information, you've just gotta have a clue about where it's gonna end. Treat the character poorly, and you are going to get a massive amount of blowback from the fans as well as the experts. But the payoffs for if you get it right are massive, if you do get it right. And Super did do that many times by doing many callbacks and references to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Then you attract the attentions of the fans, keep them loyal, as well as attract a new legion of fans from a different generation who are curious to look back at the original source material. So you might just think from my praise that it's easy to do. Not quite. I don't think I need to remind you, but Dragon Ball Super was grossly understaffed and grossly underprepared for the task in hand. This isn't just a 12-episode story, this is going to be a major series of a major franchise that has been going for about over 30 years. You need to have your stuff sorted before you actually announce something. When they announced it back in April of 2015, they didn't even have a logo. They just had a couple of the actors saying, I'm gonna be in it, and this guy's gonna produce it, and there's a name. And even to this day, we still get concerns and mutterings from the staff that they don't have as much time to work on their craft as they do on other shows. As a result, what has this affected the most? Well, quite frankly, it's the story. Now you see, one of my biggest grievances in Super is its actual unique selling point. Its place in the timeline. Yes, it fills up a hole we once had, and it satiates some of our curiosity concerning it, but it does throw back one major flaw that you have to address or be aware of if you're going to go into it. We kind of know how it's going to end, and I can't blame them. It's something really hard, because there are some things you can't change. You are actually limited with some restrictions. And yes, you could be brash and just say, to hell with the end of Z, we're going to write our own series, but nostalgia goggles, rose tinted, that's a problem. If you negate the end of Z, you are going to cause a lot of headaches for your staff, the audience, and potentially alienate a huge sector of that. And people will think, well, what's the point of watching the end of Z? It's going to harm Dragon Ball Z as a product, and you do not want to do that. So, okay, it's pointless, it's really hard. What do you do then? Well, you just gotta fill in that time with some really deep characters, some really intriguing plot points that add some depth and lore and curiosity to the mix. Credit where credit is due. Super did manage to do that with the Gods of Destruction from the Battle of Gods, the Angels, the 12 Universes, the Omniversal Hierarchy just building on what went before because the whole King Kai, Supreme Kai, Omni King thing, they continued that trend. That was cool. And not only that, by having 12 universes, we managed to explore the realms of where we could go. We could explore different worlds from 12 different universes and see that there are strong fighters out there too that Goku can challenge. Nice! I liked that. Plus Whis is cool, period. It's a good start, but then you run into a Goku-shaped problem. Now, I'm pretty sure you might have noticed that the Goku in Dragon Ball Super is very different to the Goku in Dragon Ball Z, or even Dragon Ball. He's a lot more blatant when it comes to his naivety. It's a bit more one-dimensional than it was before, and it was pretty one-dimensional back then, and at some points it becomes borderline idiocy, and it really ground my gears, and I really love Goku as a character. And that's really unfair on the character as a whole, because Goku is not dumb. He may be unintelligent in the realms of assessment that we acquire and associate with intelligence, but in other ways, he is really, really intelligent. And if you want to actually find more about that subject, you can check out my Goku is Smart video, link in the description and up top. It's a very interesting read, I'm really proud of that video. It became exceedingly irritating, and I'm sure it annoyed very, very loyal Dragon Ball fans out there that were thinking, this isn't Goku, what's going on? If you get Goku wrong, or at least have him a little bit off, people are going to notice, even if they don't like Goku. And it all came to a head with, yes, you guessed it, the whole forgetting the Mafuba jar thing. What? Yeah, okay, I may be starting to rag on Super a bit, but I need to bring it back to where I need to give credit. There is one character that has been treated really well, and I'm really proud that he has, and that is Vegeta. Vegeta's development has been remarkable. And yes, it had a little bit wobble at the beginning of the Tournament of Power arc, where I thought they'd basically unwritten everything they did before, but by the end of it, and where we are right now, it's all come good again. It's now clear what he stands for. He fights for everything that he believes in, and can actually teach people a lesson instead of just shouting, "Bah, bah, bah, pride," and stuff like that. And yeah, now I can see why Chris Sabat likes Vegeta so much. And the fight with Toppo was proof enough that he passed the test. Congratulations, Vegeta, you're now a nice guy. Good job. Now, as I mentioned about earlier, when it comes to characters, the filler episodes in Super are actually some of the best moments. The 10 episodes between the Goku Black arc and the Universe Survival arc are actually some of my favourites in the entire show. because when it came to actually writing some comedy and slice of life moments, the staff over at Super really knew what to do. Toriyama could really push out his arms, stretch his legs, and really get to grips with the series. It provided some really good moments, like episode 68, with the whole 18 and Bulma trying to get a wish, and then Beerus comes down and destroys the time machine. That was great. The Dr. Slump episode, the 2-part with Krillin, that was fantastic. They just needed to take that energy into the main arcs as well. Of course, I'm talking about characters that were really loved, but don't forget, there were characters that were overlooked. We're talking about Supreme Kai, we're talking about, of course, Ten Shin Han, but I'm not really going to go in depth with that because many other people have, and they have done it much more accomplished than I ever could. But suffice to say, the writers didn't know what to do with him, but they understood they had to do something, and that is really bad. If you're not going to do something well, you may as well not do it. Now, the biggest issue I'm probably going to have comes with the ending. And I remember my 5 ways the universe survival arc could end video, and I was really hopeful for a really bombastic ending with betrayals, about faces, the Grand Priest turning evil, the Grand Priest working together with the remaining fighters to fend off Zeno, or potentially Zamasu inside of Zeno. All these things we're thinking, yeah, we can have something really different and really exciting and really bold and brash. But it's not gonna end that way. And it's a real shame because Toriyama can really subvert things and throw our expectations out of the window sometimes. When he gets it right, he gets it right. But when he doesn't and he shows himself to be lazy, it really shows. I remember lamenting heavily that the makers of Dragon Ball Super were going to keep things really simple. Yes, I know, Dragon Ball Super isn't meant to be a place for deep and existential debate. This is not a very philosophical anime. But at the same time, that doesn't give you carte blanche to basically patronize your audience. You need to treat them with respect because they are giving their time to your show and potentially buying your merchandise or sharing your product with their friends. By simply just having the main final fight going to just Jiren, Goku, blah, blah, blah. That's just saying, we're just going to give you the same schlock that you've had before. Of course, this is conjecture. I could be wrong, and I hope that I'm wrong. Now, when it comes to missed opportunities, we need to address something here that has been going throughout the entire production, and that is of Gohan. First off, it started pretty neutral in the Battle of God's Arc, then it became pretty dire when Gohan was taking pot shots from Frieza, and then it became something again. We saw that initial shot of Gohan in the gi and thinking, oh my god, he's gonna be a thing again! He did have some really cool moments, especially gaining the respect from the likes of Frieza. And not only that, but Gohan made sure that the non-Saiyan members of Team Universe 7 got a chance to have some credible screen time by basically hanging out with them. And then Gohan could have risen up, be one of the remaining 2 to fight alongside Goku, like we saw at the end of Ending Theme 9, but that turned out to be a red herring. If 17 had been eliminated instead of Gohan, I would have still been proud of the Cyborg's contributions. But with Gohan being eliminated, I still feel like his thing was unfinished. But let's just say it didn't quite stick the landing. All in all, I'm kind of disappointed with Super, but I'm also impressed by it. It should have had much more lead-in time and strategy for a show like this, but the fact that it managed to actually go on for 130 plus episodes and not just suddenly collapse in a heaping pile of fire and ash, you know, that's fair enough. It managed to do the impossible, even though it shouldn't have had to. This is Dragon Ball here, a franchise which generates nearly billions of dollars worldwide for Toei and Shueisha and Fuji and the whole Toriyama thing. You can afford to have the best materials, the best staff, and the best production team that you can possibly generate. And that turns out not to be the case sometimes. There are some really talented people behind the scenes, but they really need some much more guidance and time in order to show their abilities. But Super was still a success because it generated a lot more money than there would have been had there been no series. It's quite clearly, from a business perspective, a race to the bottom to try and maximize on profits and cut down on costs. So, okay Masako, what do you want from this? Well, what I want is a series that goes forward from Dragon Ball Z and becomes its own thing. There are so many different spin-off series that come up with some really cool ideas. Bring them into the main show, so that means everything is cohesive and everything works together. At the moment, it seems very, very static with different teams doing different stuff. All these other series that come up with some really innovative ideas kind of make Super really unoriginal. And maybe it was doomed from the start because of it. So what do you guys think? Did you think Super had some major problems? Do you think the ending could possibly redeem it? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!